My dear students, I, Jigna Patel, will teach you Apache Cassandra in this lecture. This is the symbol of Apache Cassandra. Apache Cassandra is a highly scalable, high performance distributed database designed to handle the big data, or we can say the large amount of data across many commodity servers, and it also provides the high availability with no single point of failure. This is the type of the NoSQL database. It is an open source and distributed and decentralized storage system database. This is what the symbol for the Cassandra, Apache Cassandra. We'll see the features, or we can say that the notable points of the Apache Cassandra. See, as I told you earlier, that Apache Cassandra is used for managing the big data or for the large volume of data, for the structured or for the semi-structured data spread out across the world. It provides the highly available services with no single point of failure. These are the features, or we can say the notable points. It is the first as it is a scalable, fault tolerant and consistent. It is the column oriented database. This is very much important that this belongs to the column family of the NoSQL databases. Its distribution design is based on Amazon's Dynamo, and its data model is used as the Google's Big Table. It is being created at Facebook, and it differs sharply from relational database management systems. Cassandra implements a Dynamo-style replication model with no failure, but it also adds the more powerful column family into the data model. It is being used by some of the biggest companies like Facebook, Twitter, Cisco, Rackspace, eBay, Twitter, Netflix, and many more. If we look at the history of the Apache Cassandra, is being developed at Facebook for the inbox search. It was open sourced by Facebook in July 2008. Cassandra was accepted into the Apache Incubator in March 2009. It was made an Apache top-level project since February 2010. As far as the design goal of the Cassandra is concerned, we'll look into the architecture of the Cassandra. See, as I told that the design goal of the Cassandra is to handle the big data and workload across the multiple servers, multiple nodes without single point of failure. The Cassandra has peer-to-peer distributed system across its nodes, and data is distributed among all the nodes in the cluster. All the nodes, these are the three very important points here. All nodes in a cluster play the same role. Each node is independent and at the same point of time, they interconnected to other nodes also. Each node in a cluster can accept the read and write request, regardless of where the data is actually located in the cluster. And the third point is, when a node goes down, read or write request can be served from other nodes in the network. So here, these are the three main architectural aspects of the Cassandra. If we look at the data replication in Cassandra, how it is being demonstrated. Look at this figure. In Cassandra, one or more of the nodes in the cluster act as a replicas for a given piece of data. If it is detected that some of the nodes responded with an out of the date value, then Cassandra will return the most recent value to the client. After returning the most recent value, Cassandra performs the read, repair, in the background to update this particular stale values. This figure shows the schematic view of the how Cassandra uses the data replication among the nodes in a cluster to ensure the no single point of failure. Here, Cassandra uses the gossip protocol in the background to allow the nodes to communicate with each other and detect any faulty nodes in the cluster. Here, key components used over here as the node, the data center, the cluster, the commit log, the MEM table, that is what the memory resident data structure or the table, or the SS table or the Bloom filter is being used as the components of the Cassandra. But as far as the replica is concerned, you can see from this figure that a particular gossip protocol is being used to ensure that to ensure the communication with each other to detect any of the faulty node or any of the failure of a particular node. Next is the Cassandra query language. See, this is a very introductory lecture on the Cassandra where you are going to touch upon the different characteristics or the different components of the Cassandra on the introductory level. If you wish to implement a project using the Cassandra, then you can refer the study material given by me. See, as far as the Cassandra query language is concerned, users can access the Cassandra using its nodes using the CQL. CQL treats the database as a key space, as a container of the tables. Programmers use CQL, that is what the CQLSH, that is what the command prompt to work with the CQL, or separate application language drivers. Client approach any of the nodes for the read-write operation. The read-write operation over here is what every write activity nodes is captured by the commit log. As I told you, the commit log, the MEM table, SS table, node, the data center, they all are the components of the Cassandra. The node is what? It is the place where the data is being stored. The data center is a collection of all the related nodes. The cluster is a component that contains one or more data center. Commit log is what the crash recovery mechanism in the Cassandra. Every write operation is returned to the commit log. And the memory table, as I told you, that it is the memory resident data structure. After a commit log, the data will be returned to the memory table. Sometimes for a single column family, there will be multiple memory tables also. SS table is a disk file to which the data is flushed from the memory table when its contents reach to a threshold value. So these are the basic components of the Cassandra. And as far as the Cassandra query language is concerned, I told you that it is being used for the read-write operations, and the node or the coordinator plays a proxy between the client and the nodes which are holding the data. The write operation is what the write activity, each and every write activity of the nodes is captured by the commit log, return in the nodes. Later, when the data will be captured and stored in the memory table, whenever the memory table is full or the threshold is up, the data will be returned into the SS table or the disk file data file. The read operation is what, during the read operations, Cassandra gets values from the memory table and checks the Bloom filter to find the appropriate SS table. Here the Bloom filter is what we can say that special kind of cache. we can say that the Bloom filter are accessed after every query, and they are a special kind of cache memory. So here read operation is being used, um, is being used or being using the Bloom filter to find the appropriate SS table that holds the required data. As far as the data model is concerned, the data model of the Cassandra is significantly different from what we normally see in the RDBMS. Here you're going to learn the overview that how Cassandra stores its data. First one is the cluster. The Cassandra database is distributed over several machines that operate together. The outermost container is known as the cluster. For failure handling, every node contains a replica. And in case of a failure, the replica takes charge. Cassandra arranges the nodes in a cluster in a ring format, as you have seen that figure earlier. They are in the ring format and assigns the data to them. Key space is the outermost container for data in the Cassandra. The basic attributes of the key space in Cassandra are, first one is the replication factor. This is the number of machines in the cluster that will receive the copies of the same data. That is what the replication factor. Replica placement strategy. It is nothing but the strategy to place replicas in the ring. We have strategies such as the simple strategy, that is rack-aware strategy, or the old network topology, that is rack-aware strategy, or any of the strategy in order to put the replica into that ring format. And the third one is the column families. Key space is a container for a list of one or more column families. A column family in turn is a container of a collection of rows. Each row contains the ordered columns. Column families represent the structure of our data. Each key space has at least one and often many column families. So here the key space and the cluster are very much important components of the Cassandra data model. Look at the syntax of creating key space. As I told you that the key space is what? The outermost container for the data in the Cassandra. So how you can create the key space? By just putting this particular syntax as create key space name with the replication as the class, the which type of strategy you want or the replication factor you want to keep. This is what the key space, this is how you can create the key space by this three components as the replication factor, the strategy and the column families. You can see this thing using this figure. This figure shows the schematic view of a key space, where you can see that the column family. Over here, you might have the doubt or the query that I'm using, since the lecture has started, I'm using the word column family. This column family is what? It is the container for an ordered collection of the rows. Ordered collection of rows are being collected together and called as a column family, because in each row in turn is an ordered collection of the columns. And the following table or the next table will show that how it is the differentiate from the column family and the relational table. Before that, yes, before that you can see that actually the column over here is shown as the basic data structure of the Cassandra with the three values as shown in the table and a timestamp. For the column family, It is very much important to learn what is column and the super column and which are the attributes or the structure of the column or the super column. Let's first learn what is column. It is the basic data structure of the Cassandra with three values. First is the column name, is stored in the byte, number of bytes. Another is the value, that what is the value of that column. The third one is a timestamp as a clock. So this is what the structure of a column. The super column is a special column and therefore it is also having the key values pair. Here the super column stores a map of the sub columns. Each of the sub columns are having the join operation as a super column, because the super column stores all the mapping between the sub columns. So generally column families are stored on the disk in individual files and therefore to optimize the performance, it is important to keep columns that you are likely to query together in the same column family. And a super column can be helpful here for combining all of the similar column family under a super column. Okay, so for that the structure is what the name and the columns where it is being mapped. Okay, so that is what the structure of the column super column. Now let's see that the Cassandra column family are having the which particular attributes. Column family, as I told you earlier, that the column family is a container of the ordered collections and ordered collection of rows. So the family has the following or this three attributes. The first one is the key cached. It represents the number of locations to keep the caching as per the SS table. SS table is what? The files on the disk. The rows cached represent the number of rows whose entire contents will be cached into the memory. And the preload row cache is what? It is used to specify whether you want to pre-populate the row cache or not. So preload row cache is being used to pre-populate the row cache. Here, unlike the relational tables where the column family schema is not fixed, the Cassandra does not force individual rows to have all the columns. Like in the RDBMS or in the relational tables, all of the rows are to be compulsory involved. Over here, the Cassandra does not force individual rows to have all the columns. So the figure or the imagination can be the first row or the key one where the column 1 and the value 1, the column 2 and value 2 and column 3 and value 3. Similarly, another key might have the column 1 and only the 2 columns. Whatever the columns you want, you put it as a particular you can include into a particular column family. Look, this is what the difference of the Cassandra column family from the relational table. The relational table, where the very first difference over here is the schema, because schema in the relational model is always being fixed. Once we define a certain columns for a row, while inserting the data, those columns must have the values. In every row, all the columns must be filled at least with a null value. Then you can replace the null value with some values, but initially, so you know that what is relational table and what are the problems of the relational table. But if we compare the same thing in the Cassandra, you know that the Cassandra, although the column families are defined, but the columns are not. You can free to add any columns to any column family at any time. If you want that column, you can use it, else you can drop it, or you can use the combination of the different columns for your particular objective. Another difference, and very much important difference, is what? The relational tables define only the columns, and the user fills in the table with the values. But in Cassandra, a table contains the columns, or as I told you earlier, you can also define as a super column family, because you know that the super column family includes the mapping of the different column families. Okay, so that you can get the difference compared to the relational table here. Next is the data models. How the data models of the Cassandra and the data models of RDBMS are going to be differ. Okay, these are the points that would differentiate the data model of the Cassandra and with the RDBMS. The RDBMS deals with the structured data. In the Cassandra, you can work with the semi-structured data, you can also work with the unstructured data. The RDBMS is having the fixed schema. The Cassandra has a flexible schema. Whatever you wish, you can include. So that is what the flexible schema. In RDBMS, a table is an array of arrays. That is row multiplied by columns. That is what the rows are having equal to the number of columns. That is what the row is multiplied by column. But here in the Cassandra, a table is a list of nested key value pairs. That's a key value pairs is what the key is the column and the value is a particular value at that column. So here the row multiplied by column key, how many columns you are putting, that is multiplied by column value. And in RDBMS, the database is the outermost container that contains the data corresponding to an application. Look, again, this is very much important, or you just go by the words. That database is the outermost container to hold the data corresponding to the application. But here we talk about the key space. Key space is having the three attributes, as I talked you earlier, that the key space is the outermost container that contains the data corresponding to an application. Here tables are the entities of a database. But in the Cassandra, tables or the column families are the entity of the key space. So that is where it differs, that the database versus the key space. Because row is an individual record in the RDBMS, but the row over here in the Cassandra, it is the unit of the application. In the RDBMS, the column represents the attribute of a relation. But in the Cassandra, the column is a unit of the storage. In RDBMS, it supports for the concepts of the foreign keys and the joins. In case of the Cassandra, relationship represented using the collections. See, this is the conceptual difference between the Cassandra and RDBMS. So according to your application, you must know what is the difference and for which application you must go for the Cassandra, for which application you must go for the RDBMS. These are all the conceptual difference. With the introductory concepts with the Cassandra, I just over this lecture. Thank you very much. In my study material, I'll send you the installation point of the Cassandra, where Cassandra can be accessed using the CQLSH as well as the drivers of different languages. So in that study material, you will know how to set up both the CQLSH and the Java environments to work with the Cassandra, where you will learn the pre-installation setup, installing Java steps, and downloading the Cassandra, how to configure the Cassandra, then starting up the Cassandra with the programming environment and with the Eclipse environment, with a snapshot, with a screenshot. Each and everything is mentioned in the study material. So for now, I just thank all of you to listen me carefully, listen me patiently. These are the references to prepare this video as well as to prepare this PPTs. I use the tutorial points. I use the Cassandra website, and I've also used the DataStax and Guru 99 in order to prepare this particular lecture PPTs and the videos. Thank you all. Thank you.